It has come down to one final stand. Hey everybody, welcome to After Action Report, your recap show for all spun out matches to keep you caught up on all the action. I am your host, Megs, here for the Call to Action podcast channel. Today we have a big episode because not only are we going to break down Friday Night Titans, but I'm also going to be giving you some highlights from the free-for-all event that also happened. So if you did not watch the free-for-all and you don't want to be spoiled, I will give you spoiler warnings before I start recapping it, but we will be talking about the results and some cool things that happened during the event. And stay tuned for later on this week because I'll be doing a full statistical breakdown of the free-for-all again later on this week. But without further ado, let's jump right into our first scene for Friday Night Titans. Saul comes in to see Kate, and Kate says that she has all these great plans and that Bateman has a new strategy for Saul to implement. Saul seems to have a problem with Bateman being so involved in the faction. Kate takes this as a problem with her and officially kicks Saul off the den. So right off the bat here, we are seeing some interesting dynamics develop within the den because Harper and Saul were the only two members of the original den faction from last year that Kate decided to keep. She has since added in Ben Bateman and Jen Kemp, but it seems that Saul was not appreciating the changes that were happening, and Kate decided to just let him go. She seems to be taking the boss tactic of it's all business, and if you're not going to fall in line with this, you are off the team. But let's jump into the next scene that we saw. Right before the match begins, we see that Shannon, Mike, Chance, and Marisol all come together before the match to have a pep talk and to encourage each other before things get started. So as opposed to the den, which seems to be having a bit of turmoil, it seems that corruption is coming together as a faction to rally around each other for corruption as a team's final stand. So this brings us to the title match of the current and defending champions Shazam against the number one contenders, Corruption. Coming out of round one, Corruption is up by 2, 20-18, with Chance Ellison getting 11, and Meyer, Bibiani, and Kalinowski all getting 9. In round 2, Corruption spins first. They spin away from Oscars and take the 1980s, where Corruption goes 9 out of 10 points, checking down to multiple choice once, but not giving away any steals. Shazam decides to spin away from their first spin on DreamWorks Animation and ends up taking new releases. They come away with 8 out of 10 points, misses one question for 2 points, and does have it stolen for a 4-point swing. This gives Corruption a gain of 3 additional points to now be up by 5, 31-26. In the betting round, Corruption takes Pixar on their first spin, and both teams wager 3 points, and both teams answer the question correctly. This means that Corruption is still up by 5, 34-29. In the speed round, we see Chance answers the first question, and Bibiani proceeds to answer the remaining 4 questions, which gives Corruption 1 point in the speed round and Shazam a total of 4 points. This sees Shazam gaining 3 points, but Corruption is still up by 2, 35-33. In the final round, Bibiani hits his 2-pointer in Happy Madison and Adam Sandler. This takes it over to Kalinowski, who hits his 2-pointer in Animated. Back over to Shazam and Brendan Meyer hitting his 3-pointer in Famous Actors and Actresses, and Chance hits his 3-pointer for Corruption in DreamWorks. Shazam has to answer a 5-pointer in Crime, which forces Corruption to have to answer a 5-pointer in Denzel Washington, which they miss. And this gives Shazam another defense and the win with a final of 43-40. Where Shazam answered 30 of 33 questions for 91% accuracy and scored 86% of 50 available points. Corruption answered 30 of 32 questions for 94% accuracy and scored 77% of 52 available points. So what a way for Corruption to go out. They were leading Shazam the entire game up until that final round. But you did see a big momentum shift there in the speed round, with Bibiani coming away sweeping all but one question in that speed round. That is the highest score that Shazam has ever scored in the speed round using the buzzer format. And it's also worth noting that this is Corruption's first ever 5-pointer that they have missed as a team. Overall, they have an 86% accuracy in the final round. hitting 30 of 35 questions in that final round total. As I said, this is yet another defense for Shazam. They're now up to a total of 4 with a 14-2 record overall. And Shazam is now a mere 2 defenses away from tying the Patriots' 6 defenses that was set early on in the league's history. Now, you can say from a perfectionist standpoint that this was not a very clean win from Shazam. Nonetheless, they do come away with a win, and William Bibbiani showing a much improved efficiency in that speed round. So time will tell what the next challenge for Shazam will present to them. As was said, per the stipulation, this is Chance and Mike's final outing as a team. They do retire with 2 title wins and a long-standing legacy that has been around since 2018 and the Corruption Anarchy Tournament. After all that, we jump into another scene where we see that Saul is approached by Amaru Moses. Amaru saw what happened earlier and has a lot of respect for Saul and for doing what he thought he had to do, and can't wait to see him get back in and compete. Christian comes up and offers Amaru a #1 contender match that ends up being against Saul. Saul says it's the right thing to do and ends up accepting, to Amaru's disbelief. Now, it is laid out in the scene that the winner of this upcoming match, which we are told is going to be happening next week, will be a #1 contender qualifier match to face off against Kevin Smets. We jump into the next part of the show where we see that Christian comes in to announce the draw order and numbers for the free-for-all. But then Paulo Yama crashes with his manager Winston, Amaru, Klee, and Adam Collins. Oyama introduces Collins as his new team partner and ultimately cashes in his free-for-all title shot and calls out Sam Levine for a singles title shot. So this is something that we have been talking about pretty much all year. When in the world was Paulo Yama going to cash in that free-for-all title shot and take a shot at a belt? And it seems that he is now getting it in right under the wire and is challenging the reigning champion Sam Levine for the title. Coming out of round 1, Levine is up by 1, 11-10, where both of them go perfect, but Oyama does miss the bonus. In round 2, Levine defers to have Oyama spin first. He spins away from Jim Carrey and ends up taking Margot Robbie. Oyama comes away with 8 out of 10 points, checks down to multiple choice once and misses that question, and it is stolen by Sam Levine for 1 point. Levine takes SCTV alumni on his first spin and ends up sweeping the round for the full 10 points. This gives Sam a gain of 3 points to now be up by 4, 22-18. In the betting round, Levine decides to take Action Adventure on his first spin. They both bet 3 points, Sam getting the question correct, but Oyama missing the question. This now gives Sam a gain of an additional 6 points to now be up by 10, 25-15. Coming into the speed round, Sam answers the first 2 questions. Oyama is able to get in on the 3rd question, neither of them attempting an answer on the 4th question, and Sam answers the 5th and final question correctly, which does give Levine the win via KO with a final score of 28-16, where Sam Levine answered 21 of 21 questions for 100% accuracy and scored 93% of 30 available points. Paul Yama answered 15 of 18 questions for 83% accuracy and scored 55% of 29 available points. Now, where the match really changed for both of these competitors was in the betting round, with Sam actually repeating that question, which gave Oyama a chance to change around the answers himself. But according to him, he had the correct answer somewhere in there, but ultimately went with an incorrect answer, which created a huge swing inside the match, which allowed for a KO to be a possibility. With it being a knockout victory, and unfortunately the second time now that Oyama has been knocked out of a title championship match. First was when he lost the title to Ben Bateman back in 2019. Now, one really cool thing that came out of this match is that we now have confirmation that Oyama's next team partner will be Adam Collins. And it was confirmed during the event that both Oyama and Sam Levine will be in the free-for-all, which we'll get into here in a little bit. So Oyama has another chance to get another title shot, and maybe he'll try it with his new team partner. But before we get into the free for all, which again, I will give you ample spoiler warnings, I have one final scene I want to talk about from this event. We see Bateman talking to Kate and thanks her for letting him know what happened with Saul. And after talking to Guy, Bateman is thinking that he should be helping the younger competitors and taking things in a different direction than he was originally thinking. Kate seems to be following along and agrees to get in line with what he's saying. So things are getting interesting. Not only did Kate totally demolish her entire faction last year, keeping two of her competitors, now she's lost one of her original competitors, and the one that she brought in as what she calls her golden boy seems to be having a change of tune. A lot of interesting things are happening, and a lot of interesting things could happen. But I'll get more into what else is happening in the den when we get into the free-for-all. So that's going to do it for the Friday Night Titans event. I'm going to jump into the free-for-all here very shortly. So I'm going to give you guys a couple seconds here. If you don't want to be spoiled for the free-for-all, it is still available for an individual ticket. Or if you're on the Patreon, it's available to you with that tier. So I'm going to give you to the count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, we are going to jump into a quick recap and highlights from the free-for-all event. Like I said before, I am going to do a full breakdown of the statistics later on during the week as a special classified edition, but let's just give a general overview of the cool things that we saw during the event. So to start off, we saw that Sam Levine is indeed human because he managed to miss the first 2 questions coming in at the number 1 slot during the free-for-all. 2 standout IG competitors coming in early on, with Amaru coming in at 8 and Saul coming in at 11. Amaru lasting a total of 6 rounds and Saul lasting 4. So some nice performances from our typically IG competitors. Another standout was a newcomer to the MTS, Travis Fishburne. If you follow the FCL, he is the current champion, sitting at 5-0 in that division, in that league. He came in at number 16 and was knocked out on the first and only table clearing in the entire event, courtesy of Ben Bateman, who came in at draw number 22. He was able to last a total of 8 rounds and clears the table, as I said, on his second round in. And possibly to the chagrin of some of my fellow Call to Action members, I will make mention that we did see a brief appearance by our own PLD when he came in and brought then his giant whiteboard after he cleared the table. Right after that table clearing, we saw an appearance by Mark Andraco. He comes in at number 25. Last 5 rounds, and it is confirmed that he is officially back in the league. So that is really cool to see. We haven't seen Mark since he was forced to retire by the then president, Grace Hancock. We also saw Dan Murrow come in at number 27 after that table clearing, and he was able to last a total of 10 rounds. More on that here in a second. So what is the free-for-all without a little bit of a sticky ruling? We saw such an instance with Peggy Gibbons, who was in on round number 15. The question was asking which of these films was not written by John Hughes, and there were several movies listed. She was the first one to answer the question, and while she had the correct answer written on her board, her brain went another direction and said the incorrect answer. Now, Christian does rule that the question will stand as a correct answer because she had the correct answer written. She just had a little brain fog there and verbalized the wrong answer. What are your guys' thoughts on that ruling? Do you think it should have stood as it was, or do you think maybe she should have been not awarded the point? We saw a couple other interesting appearances by competitors that we haven't seen in quite some time. Notably, we had Ken Knapsack, who had been introducing all the competitors up to the point that he had to introduce himself as draw number 39. We also saw some managers come in. Adam Witt came in at number 4. John Kaiser was in at 14. Shannon Barney at number 20. And Winston Marshall coming in at 37. Draw number 40 was also Chandru, who was in full heel and fully takes advantage of the fact that he got a question right that Dan Murrell missed. They both do go out in round number 23, and that does end up leaving Marisol, who was draw number 38, and Paul Preston at draw 32 as the last two standing. And Marisol comes away with the win and a title shot, with Dan coming in with the MVP because he was able to last a total of 10 rounds, and he now has a number one contender shot. And something that several of us were curious would appear did make an appearance in the free-for-all, and those were wild card slices. The categories that we saw in the free-for-all were Schmoedown Stars in Movies, Boston-based films, Baseball is Back, fourth entries in franchises, wonder who that might be referring to, and All or Nothing, which are films who had a 0% or 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So that's it for my highlights from the free-for-all. Like I said, I will be doing a further statistical breakdown later on during this week. But let me know down in the comments if you have any other moments or highlights from the free-for-all event that you enjoyed. But wait, there's more. We have one final scene that aired at the very end of the free-for-all. We see Kate and Ben come in and talk to Peggy, where Kate apologizes to Peggy about what happened with the faction at Spectacular, and Ben explains that his business now is to elevate rookies that he liked last year. He liked what she did last season and wants to partner up with her. The idea is that Bateman will play her in a teams match with random teammates. Ben says he has some patron who will play with him, and Peggy is welcome to bring on anyone that she wants to have a shot, and after they play, Ben and Peggy will team up to be the team for the Den. Peggy was not expecting this at all, but does agree. Oh my goodness, as if things couldn't get more interesting for the Den. What do you guys think is going on here? Because we do see that Bateman is wanting to elevate these newer rookies, taking on his role as the elder statesman of the league. Do you trust it? What do you think is going to happen over the next few weeks? Well, that is going to do it for this week's episode, but don't worry, I'll be right back next week breaking down everything for Friday Night Titans, and don't forget to check back during the rest of this week for my special classified edition breakdown of the free-for-all. Hoping to get that out Wednesday, Thursday, at the latest on Friday. Before you leave, please make sure that you have hit like on this video, you're subscribed to the channel, and that you're leaving comments both here or at the socials that are listed down below. The match breakdowns that I present here will be posted to the socials listed down below. Until next time, for the entire Call to Action podcast crew, I'm your host, Megs, and this is After Action Report, signing off.